God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, milk cows, work all day in the fields, milk cows again, eat supper, then go to town and stay past midnight at a meeting of the school board. So God made a farmer. I need somebody with arms strong enough to wrestle a calf and yet gentle enough to deliver his own grandchild. Somebody to call hogs, tame cantankerous machinery, come home hungry, have to wait lunch until his wife's done feeding visiting ladies, and tell the ladies to be sure and come back real soon, and mean it. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to sit up all night with a newborn colt and watch it die, and dry his eyes and say, maybe next year. I need somebody who can shape an axe handle from a persimmon sprout, shoe a horse with a hunk of car tire, who can make harness out of hay, wire, feed sacks, and shoe straps, who planting time and harvest season will finish his 40-hour week by Tuesday noon and then paint him from tractor back, put in another 72 hours. So God made a farmer. God had to have somebody willing to ride the rest at double speed. He had the hay and head of the rain clouds, and yet stop in midfield and race to help when he sees the first smoke from a neighbor's place. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales, yet gentle enough to feed lambs and wean pigs and tend the pink-combed pullets who will stop his mower for an hour to split the broken leg of a meadowlark. It had to be somebody who plowed deep and straight and not cut corners. Somebody to seed, weed, feed, breed, and rake and disc and plow and plant and tie the fleece and strain the milk and replenish the self-feeder and finish a hard week's work with a 5-mile drive to church. Somebody who would lay a family together with soft, strong bonds of sharing, who would laugh and then sigh and then reply with smiling eyes when his son says that he wants to spend his life doing what Dad does. So God made a farmer.
I really love this video. I think this really portrays very well what farming life is all about and just what goes into being a farmer and the passion and the drive and the endless hours and hard work of what goes into making food for us. So important. And as a chef, I can't thank farmers enough for what you do. It's really, I appreciate it. And again, I think this video really portrays that very well. Chefs and farmers, it's such a perfect symbiotic relationship. It really is. You know, we need your food. You grow such amazing, amazing stuff for us. We cook it. You know, chefs and farmers, we need to work together more. This is what we've really, focused on with our Farm to Chefs group in Kamloops and in the Thompson area. Is our main goal, we have a few, but our main goal was basically to partner local chefs with local farmers to get more food, local food into our restaurants. So part of what I'm going to be talking about today is think big. Don't sweat the small stuff. We had some pretty lofty goals, some pretty big plans, And I think to make real change, you have to think big. Even if you're going to make small change, you have to have big goals, big thoughts. I want to talk a little bit about inspiration. I think to be an activist, to make some positive change, you need to get inspired somehow. So I'm going to tell a bit of a story about how I got inspired and how I got involved in this. So about 7 or 8 years ago, we did a dinner at Thompson Rivers University called Taste of the Thompson. This dinner was one of the most frustrating dinners of my life, of my career. The focus was on basically showing off what we had in the Thompson area. At the time, there was no connection between chefs and farmers in our area. It was very frustrating to find local food. Anyway, at that dinner, and I'm going to talk a little bit more at dinner in a minute, but at that dinner I met some people named Brian and Rebecca. They own Crannog Ales in Sorrento. These two people were some of the most inspiring and inspirational people that I have met, and they make amazing beer. That's what kind of sold me in the beginning. So again, their brewery is called Crannog Ales. Where does inspiration come from? It comes from beer. Really good beer. Their brewery is completely organic. They grow their own hops on site. It's a completely sustainable farm. Nothing leaves their farm. You know, when they make beer, all the grain from the beer is fed to their pigs. They compost everything. They have a farm on site as well, so you know, they make seasonal beers. You know, when raspberries in the season, they make a raspberry beer and so on, right? It was an amazing place. So I went out and visited their farm. Was totally inspired when I was there. We sampled their beer, we ate some food from the farm, and I thought, man, this place is amazing. One of the beers that they have is called Backhand of God. I thought, you know, if you have a beer called Backhand of God, it has got to be good. You know, it really does, and it is. It's a stout, so it's like a Guinness-style beer. It's one of the most amazing I've ever tried. And to think, this farm, this brewery, was 35 minutes from my house. Before I did this dinner, I had no idea it was there. You know, that's how kind of disconnected things were. So like I said, I went out to the farm, we talked, we ate, we drank some beer, and I really thought, you know, I need to get involved in this. This is crazy that these things are so close to me, and I don't know about them, and I'm a chef. That's crazy. I'm teaching cooking, you know. This is crazy that I'm not closer involved with these people. So I got to thinking and, excuse me, got to know them better. They started introducing me to different people around the region, different farmers and so on. And I thought, you know, my students need to learn about this. This is really important stuff. So they had shared with me. I needed to share with my students. So I thought, you know, what a better way to share with them than to take them on a field trip. So I arranged this field trip, and we had 3 stops on this field trip. The first one was in Sycamoose. It was a wild mushroom tour. And so we got there, and you know, we're driving to Sycamoose, and you know, the students are all in the back, and students are being students, and they're talking about their weekend and how they got drunk and they did this and that, and really not talking about food or, you know, the purpose of the trip. I thought, that's all right. I'll let them do that, because that's going to change. So we got to Sycamoose. We went on this wild mushroom tour. It was this amazing, eccentric, awesome guy that loved mushrooms. Mushrooms were his life. That's all he thought about was mushrooms. So he took us on this wonderful tour through the woods, and it's pointing out all these wild mushrooms, and we got back and we talked about them, and he had kind of a little display when we got back to where we started, and they got to try some of these mushrooms, and you know, their attitude was changing a little bit. You're like, wow, this is pretty cool, actually. I'm like, yeah, it is pretty cool. So that was good. We got back in the van, and we started heading to our next stop, which is the Mountain Meadows Sheep Cheese Farm. So we got there, and you know, on the way there, now they're kind of talking about food. You know, they're talking about the mushrooms and this crazy mushroom guy, and wow, that guy was so cool. He was a little bit out there, but man, he sure loved mushrooms, you know. And so, you know, now the conversation had changed and their thinking had changed. Then we got to the sheep cheese farm. Well, this place is amazing. I love cheese, by the way. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But so we got there. They got to see a lamb being born while they were there. That was cool. They met Hani Gasser, so he was this awesome Swiss guy that made the most amazing cheese, right? So completely opposite from, you know, the wild mushroom dude. You know, now we've got this really kind of this Swiss guy, and you know, very passionate about his cheese. We walked around the farm a little bit. We saw the sheep, and then we went into the cheesery. Well, this place is immaculate, as you can imagine. It has to be, right? It has to be, you know, completely hygienic and so on. So we walked in there, and he started explaining about making his cheese and showing the students, you know, where the cheese was made, and took us into he had a room that was the mold room, basically, right? So where they made their brie and so on. Well, their mouths dropped. They're just like, wow, where have we landed? You know? And then he started giving us samples of the cheese, right? They're just like, oh, they're like, chef, this place is amazing. I'm like, yeah, it is. And it's half an hour away from where we go to school, right? So they were changing very quickly. I'm going to tell a little cheese story. Anybody from the Milk Marketing Board here? Okay, good. I can tell my story. So I decided last year, kind of deviating a little bit here, but last year I wanted to make some cheese. I wanted to make some goat cheese. So I needed some goat milk. So I have kind of a network of my people out there, right? So I put it out to my people, hey guys, I need some goat milk, right? And I didn't have to explain that I wanted raw milk, they just knew, right? So anyway, I got a couple, people were writing back, oh, you can get some here, but it was pasteurized stuff, right? I wanted the real stuff, right? I wanted the gold, I wanted the real good goat milk. So somebody got back to me and they said, okay, here's the deal. You're going to send me your phone number. I'm going to pass it on to the people that I know. They may or may not get back to you. I said, okay, that sounds good. Felt like I was back in high school again. So I gave her my number. A couple weeks went past. Yeah, they didn't get back to me. Anyway, finally somebody did get back to me, and they said, hey, I got some milk. I'm like, oh, really? That'd be great. So we set up a meeting, and it was at a meeting that we were both going to be at, and this person said, okay, I'll bring the stuff. So I'm at the meeting, and this person walks in, and from the back of the room looks at me and kind of gives me the... I'm like, this is frickin' awesome. So we had the meeting, and then at the end of the day, I'm back in the kitchen and cleaning up, and this person, and you'll notice I'm keeping this very gender neutral. I'm not giving away anybody's identity here today. So this person comes in the kitchen, gives me the... So we go outside to the truck into the parking lot, kind of have a look around. Here's the stuff. So I grab it, put it in my van, right? Seriously, I thought I was making a drug deal. It was awesome. Anyway, so I took this milk back, and I got the stuff that I needed to make the goat cheese. Oh my God, it was heavenly. It was just like the best cheese I'd ever had. And it's so easy. Within 2 days, I had cheese. This was awesome to me. Back to the tour. So we left the sheep cheese farm. Now these students were engaged. They are absolutely engaged. They're just like, oh, this is the best day of our life, Well, little did they know, we're ended up at a brewery. It was about to get a lot better for them. So we got to Crannog Ales. Anybody here heard of Crannog Ales or tried Crannog Ales? Yeah, it's fantastic stuff, eh? It's amazing. I have it on tap in my house. That's how good it is. I love it, as you can see, a little bit too much. So we got to Crannog Ales. Brian and Rebecca, again, they're amazing people. They're very much mentors of mine. They've really given me a kick in the ass to get going and doing some of this stuff, and kept on me and taught me and mentored me. So we got to their farm. So that we started off not in the brewery, but they took my students around the farm and showed them how this farm worked, And this farm, like I said, it's probably one of the most sustainable places on the planet. Nothing leaves their farm, right? We went into the brewery, so we did the farm tour, and they explained about how they, the farm basically feeds the brewery, and the brewery helps out the farm, and it's just this really, really cool relationship that's happening there. So then we went into the brewery. They explained the whole brewing process and how that worked. And then we got to go and sample the beer. So they have a little pub just on the left-hand side of this place. You walk around the corner there. They have probably the tiniest pub in BC. It's actually their tasting room, but they call it the Bloody Stump. Fantastic place. It kind of reminded me of some pubs that when I used to live in Britain. I worked in Britain for 4.5 years, kind of all around. But some of the smaller pubs in Wales, I remember going to a pub over there, and literally it was somebody's living room, and there was a couch underneath the dartboard, so if somebody was playing darts, you kind of had to, do this. But it really reminded me of being back in Britain. And Brian, he's an Irish heritage, and basically his beers are sort of based on Irish ales. So we went into the Bloody Stump, and now the students got to finish off their field trip by sampling the most amazing beer, some of the most amazing beer in BC. I had them. That was it. There was no more talking about the weekend and getting drunk on the way home. They had these 3 amazing experiences. I had them. We went back, and for the rest of that semester, it was just all about They wanted to learn about local food, you know. We did things like blind taste testing of local carrots compared to carrots from 3,000 miles away. There was no contest. The local ones always won, every single time, because they didn't taste like cardboard, you know. So that was a really, really fantastic start. So one of the other farms that I took them to was a place called Notch Hill Organics. This was a great day as well. This is kind of a separate field trip. But on this field trip, I took my students there in the morning. So I was teaching the dining room section of the course at the time, Accolades Dining Room. And we tried to use as much local product as we could. So we went out there one morning, and literally the students were digging up vegetables that we were going to take back that day and put on the menu that night. So Sue, who owns the farm, she's an amazing lady as well. I haven't met many unamazing farmers. You people are just incredible, seriously. So she literally had them in the dirt, digging up carrots, brush the dirt off them, and eat them. You know, and they're kind of like, well, but they're dirty. She's like, eat them. They weren't going to say no to her. They got to taste the earth. You know, they got to taste the carrots. It was awesome. The looks on their faces, it was so cool. So we brought some carrots back with us. We brought back some sunchokes with us. You know, we got back, we cleaned them, we prepped them, we put them on the menu that night. Engaged students. It was wicked. Some other inspirations. You know, when you get inspired, other people get inspired. I was working with a chef at the time. We shared an office together. His name was Ron Rosentrotter. He actually passed away in May, but God bless him. But you know, Ron and I shared a lot of inspiration and passion together, you know, sitting across the desk and, you know, forming menus together and this kind of thing. You know, and Ron was he was a little bit on the back bench as far as the local stuff, and he was just kind of observing and seeing what was going on. He's like, yeah, I could probably get in. I'm not sure, though. But he found a passion. Bees. So he's like, you know, I've loved bugs all of my life, and I really would like to take the bee course, right? And we get professional development funds every year, and so he thought, you know what, I'm going to use some of my PD funds and take this beekeeping course, and so he did. So this is on every Monday night he'd go to his beekeeping course. Well, Tuesdays, oh man, he was just like coming to the office beaming, right? I'm like, this is cool. This guy's getting inspired about something. So he took the course. That was it. Bees were his life, right? So he went out, he took the rest of his PD funds, and he bought what he needed for his hives. And we set up beehives on the roof of our culinary building. So cool, right? So here's Ron in his bee suit, and he's up on the roof of the culinary building, and now our students are like, wow, we got bees on our roof, right? First year, he harvested about 100 pounds of honey. It's fantastic success, you know? But the cool thing, well, it was all cool, but whenever, you know, you just started talking to Ron, hey, Ron, how's your bees? His whole face just lit up, right? So awesome, so awesome. Another place where I found inspiration, went to, it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago, Chef's Congress in Duncan on Vancouver Island. That was an incredible conference. So basically the conference was held at, was it Colony Farms? I can't remember the name of the farm, but it was 300 chefs from across the country, all chefs with basically like-minded that were into local food. Some of the best chefs in the country. We spent 3 days on this farm. It was like Woodstock for chefs. I mean, it's Vancouver Island, it's raining, right? There's live music, we had a big bonfire going, and then basically every meal period was put on by a different group of chefs. You know, so I'm part of the Okanagan Chefs Association, and so one of the evening meals we put on, and again, different groups. So, you know, 300 of the best chefs across the country, best food, best wine, best beer, all weekend. And all focused talking about local food. It was just incredible. So how did Farm to Chef start? Well, a lot of it came out of me being inspired around local food, but there was still a real big disconnect between chefs and farmers in our region. So one day, a gentleman named David Mincy, so he's the chef and owner of Camille's restaurant in Victoria, he formed the Island Chefs Collaborative. He was up in our region speaking at an agricultural conference, an organic conference, and on his way back, he stopped in and he did a little talk with my students. So David was a very, very inspiring man. He was one of the founders of the Island Chefs Collaborative. They started in the late 90s. And basically how they started was half a dozen chefs sitting around a table, having a beer once a week, going, hey, this guy down the corner here, he's got the best basil. You got to get it. It's just perfect right now, right? Or this, that farm down the road there, they've got the best tomatoes right now. And so they were sharing this information, which for, some chefs, that just wasn't done. Because they're all very protective of where they're getting their product from. They didn't want to share that information. But these guys, they're forward thinking. They're like, that's not going to help anybody, So what happened with them is that they were finding that over the course of a couple of years, these fantastic farms where they're getting this product from were no longer in existence. And they thought to themselves, you know what, that's not right. We need to do something about this. We need to help the agriculture out on the island. Agriculture was dying on the island, because land is expensive. The farmers just couldn't make it. And so they thought, you know what, we're going to do something about this. So they formed the Island Chefs Collaborative. One of the things that they did was fundraising. So they set up a grant and no interest loan program. So they would do this event every year on Fort Rod Hill and basically raise money. Okay, so they charged a good amount for the event. They served amazing food. And, they'd raised, I think in the first year they raised probably something like $8,000 or $10,000. So they would take that money and they would give it out either as grants or as a no-interest loan to farmers. So they'd loan the money, the farmer would pay it back, but with no interest. This was fantastic. Now they're actually helping to make a difference in getting agriculture back on its feet on the island. So they've been around a long time. We modeled ourselves very much after what they were doing, but they've gotten to the point now, because they're so established, that they made a deal with Van City Credit Union, and this is a fantastic idea. They made a deal with Van City. The Van City will put up upwards of $250,000 a year to loan out to farms. So instead of just giving the farmers these little pockets of money, now they have access to this big pot of money. And what the collaborative does is that they pay the interest to Van City. So the farmer still gets no interest loans, but they can get bigger loans. And the collaborative, through their fundraising, pays the interest. What a frickin' great idea. And this is part of why I like to go out and talk about these things, because we need to share these ideas. We really do, That it's a very simple one, but that information needs to get out there. So anyway, David talked to my class, and I thought, you know what? We need to do something like this here. This just makes sense. We need to form a network. We need to start talking to each other. So after David left, another year or so went by. I was a little slow on the uptake, I'll admit. But Brian and Rebecca, again, they were there, and they were kicking my butt and going, hey, Ed, come on, And honestly, I work at the university. I think that that's part of our responsibility as an educational institution, is to lead the charge on stuff like this. So I went to a couple more food security workshops. Excuse me. Excuse me. And at one of them, we brainstormed about ideas of what we could do to help, things local. And one of the things that came up was forming a food collaborative like the Island Chefs had done. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to take this on. And so I did. So I invited some chefs from around Kamloops, around our region, to come and have a meeting. So I put the word out there, and I figured, it's Kamloops. It's not a food mecca at the time, especially. It's changing now. It's changing very rapidly, actually. And I thought maybe half a dozen chefs would come and sit around the table. By the time the day the meeting came up, I was getting so many phone calls and so many people were interested in hearing through the grapevine that this was going on. I had 20 chefs sitting around the table. I didn't know there was 20 chefs in Kamloops. So we talked, and we talked about this idea, and we came out of that meeting thinking, you know what, we need to explore this further. And so from there, we went out and we contacted some farmers. Thought, let's all of us get together in a room and talk about it, see what they think. Maybe they're not even interested. Who knows? So the next meeting was about a month later. We had 35 people sitting around the table. It was incredible. Incredible energy. And so that day we decided, you know what, we need to do this. And so we did. And so we started our nonprofit. So the nonprofit we originally formed was called the Thompson Shoe Swap Chef Farmer Collaborative. That's a mouthful. So I'd gone out and I'd done a few talks, and I had to say Thompson Shoe Swap Chef Farmer Collaborative. I'm like, oh my God, we got to do something about this name. So our nonprofit is still registered under that name, but through our event was called Farm to Chefs, and people just began to know us as Farm to Chefs. And so really that's what we identify ourselves at now, and it's much easier for me to say Farm to Chefs than it is Thompson Shoe Swap Chef Farmer Collaborative. So that's what we're called. I met some more mentors through this. David Toms. So at the time when we started this, he was the executive chef at the Delta Sun Peaks. So when he started there, they were buying approximately, I think it was between $8,000 and $10,000 of local food at the Delta. By the time he left, they were purchasing $100,000 of local food. David is inspiring. David is absolutely a leader and a pioneer as a chef in our region as far as serving local food. It's incredible, and a very good friend of mine. I met some farmers. Dieter was one of the farmers that I met. Dieter Duty owns Thistle Farm, and we held our first 2 events at his farm. I've learned such a lot from that man. Shirley Culver from Community Futures. She has absolutely been a mentor to me, a teacher, my surrogate mom. But Community Futures has been amazing to us. They gave us seed money to get us going, to get our first event going, and every year since have given us money to help get our event going. So I can't thank Community Futures enough. It's been really important in our success. So we have some events. Our first event was our Grow Up. Man, I loved seeing this in the newspaper. This is fantastic. So it stands for Growing Opportunities, of course. Right? This day was absolutely fantastic. So it was our first kind of get-together with all of the members. I think we had probably 60 or 70 people there that day, roughly half and half chefs and farmers. And it was a networking event. Okay, so what we did was we set up chef and farmer speed dating. It was fantastic. So we set up these tables around the room like a trade show, and each farmer had their table, and they had their product there, they had their seed catalogs there. I had my cowbell, so I got to lead this thing. More cowbell. So we started off, everybody had 10 minutes to meet each other. Everybody sat down, they started talking, chefs got to meet the farmers. 10 minutes later, I rang my cowbell, everybody had to get up and move over one. This went on for probably about 3 hours. We needed more time. That was one thing we learned from that day. And then that night we had a potluck and we all feasted together. It was fantastic. The energy in that room was absolutely incredible. This was something completely new for everybody in that room. You know, like most of the chefs there had no idea about the food that was available within 50 miles of our restaurants. How crazy is that? You know? After that day, they certainly knew. So out of this as well, we needed a way to communicate between each other, and very simply. So we set up a listserv, so basically an email list. Right? We got everybody's email. We've put it on a Google group. Right? It's very simple to set up. So that now, if any of our members are looking for a product, so if I'm looking for lamb, one email, hey guys, I'm looking for lamb. Goes out to everybody, all the chefs, goes out to all the farmers. They write back, yeah, I've got lamb, I'm killing on Friday, I could have it to you by Monday. Perfect. How simple is that? Right? I'm looking for carrots. Yeah, I've got carrots, I'm coming into town on Wednesday. You know, I remember this is kind of like another drug deal. I got a delivery of root vegetables. Like, okay, we'll meet you up at the parking lot in Costco. We'll be in the white truck. Awesome. I loved it. I'm pulling in. I'm like, where's the truck? Oh, there they are. Get it out of their truck, put it into mine. All's good. So our other event, so this is our major fundraising event that we do. It's called Farm to Chefs. So the first 2 years, like I said, was out at Thistle Farms. And it's a culinary grazing event. So what we do is we invite chefs, we invite farmers, wineries, distilleries, breweries, okay? And basically everybody sets up in their own tent, and people pay their money for the ticket. We charge $65 to get in. Once they get in, everything is included, and you can eat, drink, be merry, have as much as you like, as long as you have a ride home with somebody that's sober. And we have live music. We had a kids area. These events were fantastic. The first year we managed to raise approximately $7,000 in our first event. We had about 300 people come out to it. Last year we changed venues. So again, we want to keep this fair to everybody. If you're a member, everybody should be, at least eligible to try and have an event on their farm, as long as it can meet some criteria. Last year we held it at Sun River Organics, which is a fantastic venue right on the Thompson River, lots of shade trees. And we had, I believe, 17 chefs last year. We had 7 wineries. We had Okanagan Spirits, a local distillery. We had 2 breweries. Again, live music. It's a fantastic time, really fantastic time. I learned some things at these events, though. One of them was about being politically correct. Apparently the first one I was not politically correct, but go figure. So the first event we decided that we would allow people to get up and speak. And so we invited politicians, and I gave everybody fair billing. Anybody that wanted to get up and do that could. And so the parties did get up there. The last person to get up and talk, though, was Lana Popham. And she, at the time, was the agriculture critic for the NDP, and they were the official opposition. Well, Lana is a farmer. That's what she did. Well, sorry guys, but she got up and she cleaned the floor. I mean, she talked for 15 minutes about everything that was going on in agriculture in BC. I got in kind of a little bit of trouble for that. So we decided, I'm sharing this because if you're going to hold events, there's some things that maybe you want to do or not do. We decided the following events that we weren't going to do those kinds of talks anymore. We have been very conscious of staying nonpartisan as a group, and I think that for us is an important value. So we also did a school essay contest. This was awesome. So we put it out there to the school board for anybody, a teacher, a class, students, to write an essay on why eating local food is important. Well, one grade 7 class took this on, and I could not believe the quality of the writing from these grade 7 students and their level of understanding of why it was important to eat local food. These kids were amazing. So Aiden was the winner of this, and what we gave for a prize was we took a barbecue down to their school, and we had a bunch of local burgers, and we cooked up local burgers and had this big buffet and the burgers, and then she got a couple of tickets to our event. So that was a lot of fun. Challenges. We've definitely had some challenges as we've gone along. One of them is volunteer burnout. So we all do this for free. We're doing this because we care, because we love it, but also because it benefits both of us. It benefits the farmers, it benefits the chefs. Okay, so it's good for everybody. But we're working with 2 of the hardest working groups, hardest working people in our community. Chefs and farmers. Chefs, farmers, they all work 14, 16 hours a day in the summertime. It's crazy how hard these people work. And now you're trying to expect that they're going to give volunteer hours on top of that. It's very difficult, but they do it, But it's something that we've really had to kind of take a look at and face, and how are we going to get from where we are now and expand and go further into the future? Because there's only so much you can get, and there's only so much you can give. And that's the same for me as well. I've been involved in this for 4 years now. This is my 4th year as president of Farm to Chefs, and yeah, I'm at the point where I'm like, there's things going on at work. I have an amazing young son here that I want to spend time with. And so it's all about balance, and it's finding people that are willing to give. This was a challenge for me. So we had this great idea. So we have a big Canada Day celebration in Kamloops, and there's lots of food being served at the Canada Day event, right? And we thought, wow, this would be a great place to showcase what we're doing. Let's go cook local burgers. I don't think so. Unfortunately, a big catering company had the exclusive rights to Canadian food. So Compass Group had the right to Canadian food, and they served their cardboard burgers and fries. So we weren't allowed to go in and serve local Canadian food. We'd have to think of something else if we were going to be involved in that. I was like, are you kidding me? That's supposed to be Canadian food? How about a local lamb burger? That's Canadian food, all right? Anyway, that was frustrating. Another challenge. I tend to think big. Sometimes too much, too fast. I want to charge too soon, And it's been a benefit to me, but it's also been a drawback as well. So one of the things that I wanted to do, and this is about 2 years into the collaborative, I thought, okay, we're going strong, this is going great, we need to tell the country. This has got to happen everywhere. Yeah. So I went to the island and I sat down with the Island Chefs Collaborative and I said, hey guys, what do you think? Let's form a National Chefs Collaborative. They're like, yeah, that'd be a great idea. You're going to do it, right? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Sure, I'm in. So, some people on my board, David being one of them, he's like, are you sure about this? I'm like, no, come on, this is going so well. Everybody's going to love this idea. We got to do it. Okay, Ed, go hard. So I went to 2 years ago the National Chefs Conference in Halifax, and I spoke about what we were doing, and that I thought that we should really do this on a national level. There's so many great things going on out there, so many great people that are doing things around local food. We need to get all together somehow, right? I'll tell you, that was one of the most intimidating presentations I've ever done. Standing up in front of 300 white coats of my peers, that was a tough one. I was nervous. Anyway, I got good response from it. People were like, yeah, that's a good idea. I'd be into that. I'm like, okay, cool. So I got back. I had this whole list of like 30 more email addresses from people across the country, and we were going to form this thing. Well, that died pretty quick. We tried to get something going, but honestly, I didn't have the resources myself. I didn't have the energy myself to really put into what it would need to get that going. However, the idea is out there. I think it will happen at some point, And really what I was trying to achieve was not that, there would be one kind of governing body that did all these, these groups in Canada, but just basically forming up some sort of communication hub so that we can share examples like the Island Chefs loan program, right? Things like that. Another idea that we had was we would like to hold an event one day, and I think this will happen one day, where across the country, we hold an event similar to Farm to Chefs, but all on the same day, and have it like broadcast on the Food Network, right? So this one day would just be dedicated to this event around local food, and it'd just be this huge thing, right? Who knows? It could happen. Strategic planning. So last November, we had this great strategic planning day. It was a full day. We came out of that day with this huge document, this huge plan, that within 5 years we're going to be generating $80,000 worth of income, we're going to hire somebody full-time, we're going to have an executive director. Awesome. The next day I sat there and went, oh my God. How is this going to happen? How is this going to work? How many more hours can I put in? How many more hours can our board members put in to make this kind of thing happen? It's intimidating. And over the last 4 or 5 months, we've been going through our strategic plan, kind of picking things out, trying to get some stuff done. People are busy. People are volunteering. And we're getting to the point where we're like, there isn't as much being done. That's okay. It will get done. It doesn't have to get done tomorrow because we're making change. We have made a lot of progress. We've made a lot of great things happen. This stuff will happen. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but it will happen. So this has been one of our biggest wins. RFP for protein at TRU. So RFP, a request for proposal. So because we're a government institution, anytime we spend more than $30,000 on a product, it has to go to bid. Okay? So I became chair of the program about 3 years ago. One of the first things that came across my desk was this RFP for protein. It had been in kind of development, the writing stage for probably 1.5 years or 2 years by the time it got to me. So I read this document. Everything in that document was prohibiting us from buying local. Absolutely. Because of NAFTA, because of trade agreements, and because of being fair, you weren't allowed to put the word local in that document because it gave preferential treatment. Like, are you kidding me? So anyway, I flatly refused to sign on this document. I'm like, no, there's no way I'm signing on this. Our retail meat program, so we have 2 programs, culinary arts and retail meat, kind of all under the same umbrella. Our retail meat program has worked so hard over the last 5 or 6 years that we now train on 100% local beef. 100% local carcass is all our students train on. There was no way I was signing off on a document that was going to prohibit us from doing that. You know, we have to commit to our protein suppliers a year in advance and say, okay, Ian, we're going to take 40 head off you next year. That's not something you can just pick up the phone and go, hey, Ian, you got 40 head we can have? This takes forward planning. Right? And we do that with lamb, with chicken. Anyway, so we worked on this document for another couple of years until we got it to the point where it was going to be possible to buy local. The solution we came up with is Farm to Chefs is incorporated. We're a nonprofit, we're incorporated. So I said to our purchasing person, hey, listen, could we bid on that? She's like, absolutely. So we bid on it. Another person bid on it. We won. So we won half the bid, basically. And how it works is that if you're a member of Farm to Chefs and you grow protein, you can now sell the university protein. It was brilliant. Excuse me. A huge win for us. So how it works is, excuse me, you sell your protein to TRU, and basically our Farm to Chefs collaborative is acting as the broker. So it made it really, really simple for us to sell to an institution. And it's all legal, all above board. One of the things that I had to do, because I'm chair of the culinary program, I'm also president of Farm to Chefs, is I had to remove myself from the whole process, from both sides. So I couldn't work on the development of the proposal. I also couldn't be on the TRU side of looking at that proposal and approving that proposal. So we made sure that we covered all of our bases and that we made sure that this was going to be legal and could not be looked upon poorly by anybody. Huge success. So we have our grant program. Similar to the Island Chefs, we have not gotten to the point where we have access to $250,000, but we have given out last year, we gave out $5,000 to Kamloops Community Kitchens. They do a fantastic job there. They do soup kitchens, they do canning, preserving classes, and so on. And so we basically gave them money to refit their kitchen with some new stoves and some new hood vents and so on. So we're very pleased about that. The biggest success, though, I think, is our original goal of getting more local food into our local restaurants is happening. Excuse me. 5 years ago, if you ever walk down Victoria Street in Kamloops, is kind of where all the main restaurants are, the good ones. There may be 1 or 2 that are kind of featuring some local product. You walk down there now, and I would say at least 75% are featuring at least 1 or 2 local items, if not really basing their menu on local stuff. People are realizing that the marketplace is demanding this. This is what people want. This is what the public wants. It's not just this fad. This is something that people realize needs to happen. It needs to change, Okay, I'm going to wrap up with this. We can have a question and answer period after this as well. We have 2 groups of people, farmers and chefs. You know, back in the 80s, so I started my apprenticeship in the 80s. I'm getting old. But when I started, local food really didn't matter. You know, what we were taught was, take food from all over the world, exotic food, put it on your menus. We can get anything we want the next day from anywhere in the world. That's how we were trained. As chefs, restaurants, we're teaching people about food. We're teaching people about what to eat and how to eat and what you should eat. And in those days, that was the done thing. Get everything you can from around the world and put it on your plates. We made that happen. You know, if you think back when, 40 years ago, not that long ago, we were eating local because that's the way it was. But with the development of transportation and industrialization and so on, it became a lot easier for us to get all these things. And it was great. It was exotic. We'd never seen this stuff before. So we taught the public how to eat. Now it's come full circle. Now we as chefs and farmers have the ability, and I think the ability more than any two groups of people, to teach the public how to eat again. This is our responsibility. This is what we need to do, and it's happening. It's a paradigm shift. What an amazing thing to be involved in, that we are creating a paradigm shift. That's truly amazing to me. And I truly believe it's our responsibility to teach the public how to eat again. Thanks very much for having me.